Welcome to Daytime Ottawa here on Rogers TV. For some of us, maybe it's hard to believe, but it is 2 years ago to the day that the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a worldwide, a global pandemic. Difficult times for so many of us, so many individuals, so many industries, so many businesses. We've gone through a lot together. There are some positives that have come out of it, of course, along with those negatives, and we're going to get some very different perspectives on today's show. And I start off today's show with someone that you're probably familiar with because she is a regular over there at City News on the Sam LaPrade Show. You should tune in, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM. Karen Brownrigg joining me. She is the CEO of IHR Advisory Services. Karen, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Let's go back 2 years ago, Karen. I think most of us, when we first heard that news, we thought, oh, well, 2 weeks down the road, we'll be through this and we'll be able to move on with our lives. Did you have that same feeling at the time?
Not really. I mean, at first we thought, okay, 2 weeks tops, right? But then it became very apparent that this was likely to go on a heck of a lot longer than the 2 weeks we all anticipated it would be. And we'd made some, minor tweaks to the ways we were working, and our mindset was still stuck in the way we used to work.
Right.
And that started to change pretty quickly.
Karen, did any good come out of this from an employer perspective, an employee perspective?
100%.
Okay.
I think there's a ton of really good things that came out of this. I mean, the first thing is workers, no matter the industry, managed to figure out how to get the job done. No matter
Right.
what setback they experienced, no matter what was thrown at them, they found a way to get the job done. And in so doing, I think, we've gone from this great resignation that everyone's talking about into a great realization that we could work differently, feel better about our work, and also about the balance that we're suddenly finding and still manage to get the job done.
Yeah, and we're looking at images of how people work differently. People working in their pajamas, wearing their slippers, creating these spaces at home so that it feels like, they can still contribute and do it in an interesting manner. A lot of talk about labor shortages and like across the board, Karen, and people are wondering, like, where did everybody go? Why do we have these why do we have these shortages?
Well, Derek, the shortage started before the pandemic. The pandemic exacerbated that shortage. So we don't have the same labor participation rate that we used to have. And that means how many people are actively working in the workforce. And now with the pandemic, people are making different choices about
Right.
how they want to spend their time. A lot of folks have started up their own side gigs, their own consultancies. They've moved cities, provinces, they've changed careers because suddenly they had permission to redesign their work lives, which in turn then ended up redesigning their private lives, where they were
Right.
working, how they were spending their time.
So how are employers going to be able to get those workers back? I mean, they are desperate to have staff come back. The shortages, as you said, started pre-pandemic, and this has been exacerbated. So what advice do you give to employers?
Start talking to your people. Find out what they've realized over the course of this pandemic. How do they like to learn? Where and when are they collaborating? Where are they working when they're collaborating? And how might you integrate that into the new way that we're working? This way has changed forever. And if we don't really think that through and we try to force fit the old way of working, employers are not going to succeed at attracting and retaining their talent.
Yeah, so you can see a real struggle. So if employers are looking at, this is the way we've always done it. We've talked about that traditional employer, right? That I almost have this image in my head of them, when I talk to you about it. Do they really have to have create a better relationship, I think, with employees and show a different style of leadership. What does that different style of leadership look like?
I think it's about re-engineering the way we've always done things, right? So not to think as a leader that you have all of the answers to how excuse me, to how things should happen. It's really about consulting your team, asking them for ideas, engaging them in that planning about what is the go forward. And I'm really concerned that we're saying the return to the workplace.
Right.
It really doesn't need to be a full on return to the workplace. And I think we have to continue to do a little bit of a check in on our own mindset about what that looks like.
There's a lot of pressure, right, that's been put on, and I look at public service employees, for instance. You know, there's been this extreme amount of pressure. Some of it has gotten ugly on social media. The private industry hasn't seen that pressure, I don't think, quite yet. Do you think they're going to start to see it at some point?
Well, I think everybody should be, if they haven't started to feel the pressure. They should be worried about it.
Right.
What we're seeing across Canada with our clients is that team members are getting anxious about what this new way of working is going to look like. And there's some things that they've learned and that they really appreciate about the different ways that they're working that they're really deeply concerned are going to be torn away from them. So start the conversations now, early, excuse me, and continue to really decide how you're going to integrate that into your own operational cycle.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're going to miss the boat.
Couldn't agree more. Karen, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you sharing your advice with us today. Don't go anywhere. More important conversations coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Daytime.